morning shine, shine, shine. Las Vegas, shine your light on me.
Welcome to Las Vegas Tonight with your award-winning host, Dale Davidson. Dale interviews fascinating guests from top-ranked celebrities to people just like you who have an important story to tell. For more than 15 years, Dale has broadcast every week from the fabulous Las Vegas Strip. He finds the people who really make Las Vegas a one-of-a-kind city and lets the world know just what's happening in this remarkable town. You'll discover why 50 million people visit the entertainment capital of the world every year. Stay tuned for another exciting episode of Las Vegas Tonight.
Welcome to Las Vegas Tonight. I'm your host, Dale Davidson. Thank you so much for tuning in wherever you are in the world. We appreciate it very much. Each and every episode of our program, we do our best to bring you fascinating guests. We've outdone ourselves this time. Dr. Amish Prasad, who is a cardiologist, is with us. And we're going to talk about the heart. We're going to talk about COVID, I hope. We're going to talk about general health and get to know him a little better.
Absolutely.
Doctor,
thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
We appreciate it. You're not only a cardiologist, you're my heart doc.
Correct.
And that's how we got to know each other. And I've always felt I'm getting good care from you.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. You're an osteopath.
Correct.
Can you explain to us briefly the difference between a medical doctor and an osteopathic doctor?
Yeah, so absolutely. So traditionally, actually, so the osteopathic profession actually came about in the mid 1800s or so.
Wow.
And at that time, if you remember from, it's kind of like the general medicine at the time was very rudimentary, and it was very introductory in terms of what we were trying to do and things we were coming up with.
Sure.
And so a lot of the therapies weren't necessarily the best. You know, we don't have the medications, the technology that we have right now. So at that time,
bleeding people doesn't work that well.
Exactly. So Dr. Still is the one who started the field of osteopathy, and he saw some of the therapies that were going on that were actually doing more harm than good.
Yeah.
So he said, okay, let's maybe simple it down and see what we can do. So he came up with more looking at the body as a whole, a little bit more musculoskeletal stuff. And that was how it started. And obviously over time it's evolved to the point now where the curriculum in the schools are exactly the same. The training programs actually combined. They used to have separate training programs, so now those are combined even. The osteopathic, allopathic physicians go through the same training.
Oh, okay.
It's just the roots come from the era of, hey, let's look for alternative medicines. Now there's the same exact therapy, same exact medicines, training, treatments, everything like that.
But you still kind of look at the patient more in the whole.
Oh yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I don't want to take anything away from the allopathic too, because I know a lot of the MDs, most MDs hopefully will do the same thing as well.
Yes.
It's just kind of rooted in that belief.
Okay, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Let's get to know you a little better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell us about your childhood. Where'd you grow up?
So I was born and raised in New Jersey, actually middle of New Jersey, about half an hour to an hour from New York area.
Okay.
And I was born there, and then roughly when I was about 12 or 13, moved to Detroit, Michigan.
Oh yeah.
Which I still claim is my hometown, no matter what, even though obviously living and loving in Las Vegas right now.
Yes.
Went to school at University of Michigan. So I always tell people I'm a diehard. You probably have noticed I'm a diehard Michigan Wolverine fan.
Yes, indeed.
And true blue to the blood. And then came out to Las Vegas for my medical school training and medicine training, and then went from there.
Oh, that's wonderful. You went to Truro University.
Truro University, right.
Yeah, and that is specifically for osteopathic physicians.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about your family. Where did they grow up?
So both my parents are from India.
From India. Okay.
My dad is a chemist, so he actually came over to Canada initially. And then 1960s or so for his training, for his PhD and his education. Right. And liked it so much. Him and my mom came over. They liked it so much, they stuck in Canada for a few years, then eventually moved to the U.S.
Oh, okay.
Where he did some more teaching and more academic.
Oh,
and then
right.
moved to New Jersey, where I came in the picture.
Yeah.
And then they moved to Detroit.
Yeah. So was he teaching in Detroit as well, or what was he doing there?
He is still teaching actually in Detroit.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, still teaching
Oh, that's
chemistry
great.
Over in Detroit.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Brothers and sisters?
I have one older brother,
Yeah.
and he lives in Chicago.
Oh,
and he's in
okay.
the financial field.
Oh, okay, great. Sounds like the boys were very successful. Your parents have to be proud of you, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, then we give all our credit to them. You know?
Were they saying to you, you got to be a doctor, you got to be a doctor?
No, not at all, actually.
Really?
Not at all, actually. In fact, my initial schooling was in the computer field, in computer science.
Okay.
So, and then, I just liked helping people better. So I moved into the medical, but they were saying, hey, whatever you want to do, go ahead and do it. Just put all your heart into it and do well in it.
Yeah. You and I have talked about the practice of medicine, and we've talked about COVID.
Right.
This has been a devastating virus for our country.
Absolutely. The whole world.
Definitely. I know you're not a
virologist.
Virologist. Thank you. I know you're not one of those guys, but we'll get your opinions on these things.
Sure.
What do you think is the best treatment once people have come down with COVID?
Best treatment with COVID, once people have actually, unfortunately have had the disease, we're still working on it. There's no definitive treatments. I know there's some coming down the line that are specific for COVID. Otherwise, the current treatments we have are just kind of general supportive care, almost like just general supportive care.
Yeah.
We have some that are a little bit more effective for COVID, but not necessarily specifically meant for COVID.
Yes.
I know people talk about the remdesivir.
I had that when I had.
Yeah, which is actually treatment for a different virus. So we decided, hey, it kind of works okay for COVID. Let's try it and let's use it.
It's for SARS, isn't it?
No, it's actually for Ebola treatment.
Ebola, that's right.
And which obviously is not COVID.
Yeah,
and it just happens to maybe cross over a little bit and doesn't hurt, but it's not specifically directed towards COVID.
Okay.
I know there are more therapies hopefully coming down the line for COVID.
Right.
But nothing specific right now. So it's kind of a general treat people with oxygen and steroids and supportive care for now.
Yeah, that's what I had. And I had double pneumonia, so they pumped me full of all kinds of drugs.
Right,
to try to kill that off.
Right.
Antibiotics by the ton. But I just want to give a shout out to the medical professionals who have been under tremendous strain over the last 2 years with this. And I saw some incredible things happen in Summerlin Hospital where I was. The people there were just fantastic.
Yeah.
What brings people into the medical field overall? You mentioned you like to help people. Is that number one, would you say?
I would think so. At least that was for me.
Yeah.
Definitely, you get into it thinking that you can make a difference, you can affect people's lives and, hopefully turn things around and give them a better quality of life.
Sure.
And, make them live better.
Yeah. And you do have to put up with an awful lot. Are you married, by the way?
No, not right now.
Not married. So there are family issues and pressures on the family and kids and, being a dad and all the rest of it when this goes on. But, I really admire people in the medical field.
Yeah, it's definitely a sacrifice going through it and working, and especially now in the last year or so, it's definitely more of a sacrifice. But.
Yeah, with COVID. Back to COVID for a second. Prevention is obviously the best route.
Number one.
There's an awful lot of controversy right now.
Right.
Should we take the jab or not take the jab?
Right.
All the rest of it. Give me your straight up medical opinion of that. When people come in and say, Doc, what should I do?
Yeah. So like we were talking earlier, I rely on the data and I rely on research that's been done. Like I said, I'm not a virologist, so I rely on those that are more specialized. Just like we do in everyday life, we rely on people who are smarter than us, who know what they're talking about.
Sure.
And so when it comes to the current vaccine for COVID, all the vaccines that are out, they haven't been released until they've gone through the appropriate, trials before, tested in animals, tested in the lab. And then adequate number of research and people that they've tried it on before they release it to the general public. So, and then when they did, the numbers backed it up, saying that especially with the Pfizer and the Mrna vaccines, they're 95+% effective in preventing infection with COVID and especially preventing people getting super sick and dying, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and they work, and the numbers bear it out. And there's always going to be risks. There's always going to be side effects, but the side effects are minimal compared to the benefit of just not dying from COVID.
Yeah.
Not getting super sick.
A lot of people were afraid, and I think fear is behind a lot of this, because they felt that the vaccine was rushed through the process.
Right.
But I read somewhere that they'd been working on this for years and years, anticipating that another virus, who knows what combination, would be hitting us.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the technology for the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccines is this mRNA technology, which is a protein that teaches your body how to make the antibodies against the virus, how to fight the virus.
Oh, okay.
And they've been developing this technology for 10, 15, 20 years. They finally perfected it, then finally waiting for the right time to use it.
Right.
And unfortunately or fortunately, COVID came through, and they've already done the research in the lab and with animals, and even to a small degree people. And then COVID came out, they tested it even more. Once they felt it was ready for release, they released it.
Right.
And the numbers showed that it worked.
Do you think all of this fear is unfounded? I think it's understandable,
Right.
because everybody's afraid of this thing.
Right.
But is it totally unfounded in your view?
I don't know if I'd call it unfounded, just more, like you said, it's understandable.
Yeah.
And there is a hesitation. It's brand new, and a lot of the research, a lot of the medical community is learning as we're going along. But we rely on the research, we rely on the data, and you have to trust it. Just like we do in cardiology, if a new medication comes out for the heart, or a new device, or a new stent or pacemaker,
Right.
by the time it gets in our hands, we trust that it's been tested, it's gone through the appropriate rigors of, if it works or doesn't work,
Right.
potential downside side effects. So by the time it gets in our hands, we know that it's safe to, give to the general public. And the vaccine is no different. It's already gone through that vetting process.
Yeah.
And now, okay, it's ready to use.
And you read a lot of journals. Do you have time? I've often wondered, doctors have all of this stuff they need to read and learn and keep up with,
Right.
but they got patients to see.
Right.
So how do you find time to do that?
Well, it's when you go home. I always tell people, I work with a lot of trainees and students and all that, and they always ask, which field should you go into and all that. I tell them, pick the field that you're the most interested in, that you actually don't see it as work to go home and read about or talk about or, call your friends about. So it's not even going home and, okay, now I got to study. It's more, hey, this is just like reading any Time magazine or any kind of magazine that comes home. You read your medical stuff because it's interesting to you.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Right. And if it's not interesting, maybe you should be looking somewhere else, right?
Yeah. I even get, and obviously I'm not a doctor, but I get a thing called MedPage, and it's got really short stories, little brief nuggets of what's going on now with COVID and other things, and I think it's fascinating.
Oh yeah.
The human body is a truly intricate machine,
absolutely.
Isn't it? The heart is a vital part of that. It's the machine that runs the whole operation.
Right.
Tell me about why you wanted to be a heart specialist.
Because it is the one, like you said, it is
the power plant.
It is one of the power plant. It's the pump for the body.
Yeah.
And cardiology is one of those fields that, unfortunately or fortunately, it affects almost everyone. Especially after a certain age. We're talking about virology. Not everyone has a viral infection or an infectious disease, but everyone has a heart, obviously, and everyone has cardiovascular issues or, will have issues at some point.
Yeah.
Or we work in cardiology as a preventative. I know we've talked a lot about preventative medicine before, so that you don't have a cardiovascular issue, but you do your best to prevent it.
Yeah. They talk about diet and they talk about exercise. Not overusing alcohol. Do those really make a big difference in heart health?
100%.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Diet for sure. You are what you eat, and what you put in is what you get out. And I always tell my patients that don't buy into these fad diets. Don't buy into these these niche diets that they come up with online. Just eat healthy, eat clean, eat healthy. More plant-based, the better. I always tell people, if you're going to eat meat a few times a week, don't overdo it. Limit the amount of processed foods you're eating, more fresh fruits, more vegetables, and then exercise. In the cardiology world, we tell people 30 minutes a day, cardiovascular, continuous movement, even if it's just brisk walking.
Okay.
You're already better off than most, and you'll probably live longer than most just doing that.
So sedentary is really a bad thing, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. And for your musculature as well.
Absolutely.
Isn't it?
Everything. Digestive tract, obviously cardiovascular, neurologically. Exercise is a big benefit.
What kind of exercise do you do personally?
Me personally, I like to run, so I like to get on a treadmill,
okay.
work out in the gym a little bit. But same thing, about half hour to an hour a day.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like you said, where do I find time? A lot of times I'll listen to the podcast for the medical stuff and learn a little bit there. So, find something that you have interest in that distracts you from exercise if you don't enjoy it.
Yeah.
And especially now with technology, it's so easy to do that. So,
that's great. We need to take a brief break.
Absolutely.
Doctor, we appreciate Dr. Amish Prasad coming with us today, and he's really been fascinating, giving us some good information on how to stay healthy. So we're going to do some specific questioning. We're also going to talk about faith and the importance faith has in health. And we're going to try to come up with all the questions that you would want to ask the good doctor if you were in the room here. So we'll be back with Dr. Prasad right after this. Hi, I'm Dale Davidson, host of Las Vegas Tonight. You know, radio has an enduring place in the heart of America. Sometimes it's music that can enliven your spirit or keep you company when you need some. More often for me, it's just been the right spoken word or two that can quiet my mind and soul. Radio brings me a reassuring word in the quiet of night or a welcoming voice early in the morning as I shake off the night's sleep and find my way into God's purpose for my day. And always, I find the best radio station is the one that brings me the best news, the gospel of Jesus Christ. My favorite radio station is KKVV in Las Vegas, Nevada. It's still right where it's been for years, at 1060 on the AM dial, hovering over Sin City like a gospel airship, broadcasting the good news of the abounding love that Jesus Christ has for every single one of us. No matter who you are or where you live, you can receive God's Word via the KKVV Gospel Airship. Just go to kkvv.com and click on Listen Live. KKVV is using all the tools that God's provided them, like podcasting and video streaming and video on demand, to produce programs that lift up our fellow believers and save the lost. If you feel a calling to speak to others about Jesus Christ on your very own show, pick up the phone and call the station. They'll be happy to tell you how. Call KKVV today at 702-731-5588 or drop them an email at kkvvradio@hotmail.com. Please join me in becoming part of the KKVV family. You'll be glad you did. Dr. Amish Prasad, who is an osteopathic physician and a cardiologist, is here with us today. If you want to know more about his practice, which is called Prime Cardiology, you could go to prime-cardiology.com. And you have several offices.
Absolutely. Three around Las Vegas.
Yeah. The medical school is really ramped up here, the UNLV Medical School.
Correct.
And there's been a shortage of physicians here in Las Vegas. Is it trending better? Do you think we're going to be able to keep up with this population growth?
I think it slowly is, to be honest with you. So talking about Turo, what we were talking about earlier, when I joined Turo, when I first started medical school, we were the second class. And so Turo had just opened, and Turo was the first medical school in Las Vegas.
Oh, right.
At that time, University of Nevada, Reno would send their medical students down. So now that UNLV has a local med school too, preferentially taking local students.
Right.
Hopefully more people stick around town. I know from my experience, being in practice now, I see a lot of Turo grads who've gone through the process of training and all that and have stayed in town. Right. UNLV is still fairly new in the process, so I'm hoping that same thing. Once their students go out and train and either stay in Vegas or come back to Vegas, I think that's going to trend the right way.
Let's talk about the process of becoming a physician, if you don't mind. It's many years. It can be 12 years or more, right?
Sure.
Tell us about your training, the residency, the internship. What order does it come in? For those who are, kids watching and are interested in the medical field, what kind of commitment do you have to actually make?
Sure. So first it is 4 years of college, 4 years of undergraduate education. Like I mentioned earlier, I did computer science, so there's no requirement in college to major in a specific thing. You don't necessarily have to major in a pre-medical field.
Oh, okay.
Biology, psychology.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
So I majored in computer science because at the time I was interested in it.
Yeah, sure.
I still took prerequisite classes like biology, chemistry, physics that are required for med school. But same thing, you do whatever you're interested in.
Sure.
You're going to be doing medicine the rest of your life. So in college, do something you're interested in or you want to learn about.
Right.
After that, you apply to medical school. Medical school is 4 years additional.
Right.
Around your third or fourth year of medical school, you start thinking, okay, what field do I want to go into?
Yeah.
Either medical field, pediatrics, surgical. There's a wide variety.
Yeah.
And you do your clinical rotations in medical school, and that's where you're exposed to different fields, and you start to learn, okay, what am I interested in? What do I like, and all that.
So you shadow doctors and things like that?
Yeah, you shadow doctors, or you shadow, or you work with them in the hospital, and you kind of get a little bit of independence, and then you start applying for your training programs, internship, residency. And so after that, you go into your internship / residency.
It's the same thing?
Yeah, traditionally, physicians used to do 1 year of internship and then go into residency. That's kind of gone the wayside. Now it's more of a straight residency.
Oh, I see.
And so now most residency programs are at least 3 years. For example, internal medicine is a 3-year training program. And then now internal medicine, you can specialize in a variety of fields: cardiology, gastroenterology, infectious disease, pulmonology, critical care. There's a wide variety.
Yeah, sure.
And same thing, roughly maybe into your second or third year of residency, you start deciding, hey, I really want to focus on, for me, cardiology.
Right.
And you do a little bit more cardiology work in your training, obviously make sure you like it for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And then you go into what they call fellowship, which is a subspecialty or a specialized training.
Oh, okay.
And that's also all you're doing for additional 3 years is strictly cardiology or whatever field you go into.
Yeah.
And then after that, there's even more training you can always go into. Some of my partners are electrical specialists. Some of them are what they call interventional cardiologists, where they do stents and all that.
Right.
Or some people fix heart valves, and that's additional 1, 2, 3 years. So the training never ends. But like I said earlier, if you enjoy it and you like it, it doesn't feel like training. You actually, the whole time you go through it, you actually enjoy it, and it's fun. And you're learning and you're training up in the meantime. But it goes by fast because you're in training and you like it.
You talk about doctors. You hear about doctors have privileges at certain hospitals and maybe not others.
Correct.
What does that mean exactly?
So privilege in a hospital just means you have the right to practice in that hospital. And the way it works, you actually, as a physician, you apply, hey, like you mentioned some hospitals in town, hey, is it okay if I come and practice here, bring patients and see patients in the hospital? And that's pretty much it, actually.
Yeah. And then do hospitals specialize more, even general interest or general hospitals in some practices and not others? I mean,
some do.
Yeah.
It kind of depends. I think in Las Vegas, all hospitals see all patients.
Oh, okay.
Some may try to focus a little bit more on one field or another, maybe more surgical, maybe more this or that. But in general, most hospitals will see all patients.
Yeah. I mentioned that I'd like to talk about how faith informs your life and also what role that plays in medicine. Let's start with that.
Yeah.
I've read some studies or some abstracts about studies saying that people who meditate, people who pray, people who have friends and family come in and pray by their bedside have better outcomes. Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. There's actually been prominent articles in prominent journals that have shown that faith in medicine, prayer in medicine, has a positive effect. Obviously, there's no way to scientifically do a study or figure out why, but they've been prominent studies and articles that said, patient is not doing well, either they're praying for themselves or family members or even staff sometimes.
Yes.
Praying for them, whatever denomination or non-denominational, whatever it is, just showing that faith. They actually do better for whatever reason. It's just, I think people's outlook changes, when they know other people are praying for them or they have something to, they have some faith behind it, they do better.
Well, you're a scientist and you believe in proving something and not just looking at the abstract, but there are miracles that seem to happen. I don't know whether you've had that experience in your practice
all the
or
time,
not.
all the time.
But tell me what's behind that, and give us an example that you've actually seen where there's been a miraculous recovery.
Well, like in terms of miracles, is like you said, the human body is intricate and it's amazing,
Yeah,
and there's
it certainly is.
and we're still learning about it. This many thousands of years later, we're still learning about the human body, and every once in a while there's surprises.
Yeah.
And it's those surprises though that spur further medical research and scientific research. Why did this happen? We didn't expect it. Let's look into it. Can we reproduce it? And
Yes.
Why does that happen? And sometimes medicine's not 100%. And like we were talking about COVID, good and bad, it's not 100%. Sometimes there's surprises that people come through or don't come through.
Yes.
And sometimes, like we said, miracles happen.
Yes.
There's probably a reason for it. We just don't know. We just don't know why. It could be scientific. It could be something else. Obviously faith-based. But every once in a while, you get a good surprise.
Yeah. Yeah. I had one, I believe, myself. When I went through the COVID, I went to the hospital for 17 days. Thought I was getting better, still tested positive when they cut me loose, and said you're going to be okay. But I had the double pneumonia, as you know. My oxygenation in my blood got down to 48%. I told you that's remarkable. And there were people who said he ain't going to make it.
Yeah.
So I really feel blessed that I did.
Yeah. No.
And I was there on the COVID floor, and there were some people who didn't. There were doctors who were suffering. That's the other thing that I really admire about the medical profession and COVID. They took all the precautions you can think of, yet,
Right.
When I was there, I said to one of the nurses, I said, are there doctors that are specializing here and they're only working on the COVID floor? Thinking, what kind of danger are they in? Mm-hmm. And she said, well, we have 2 on the floor right now. And I said, 2 are practicing in here? She said, no. 2 are in beds up here.
Right.
So how tough was that?
Oh, yeah.
Did you know physicians who got it?
Oh, I know a lot of physicians who came down with it.
Really?
Luckily, most obviously got through it.
Yeah.
I know on the East Coast, especially in New York, when people are a little bit more on top of each other, they had a lot of just not even physicians, but just healthcare workers who got it and went one way or the other. But
and now I think that stress, that strain, those illnesses are contributing to a real shortage.
Right.
I have a friend who is studying to be an RN. He's in his 30s. He's been a massage therapist and is studying, to be a registered nurse. And he told me that he's had some fear, and he's already put in some years, learning, and he has some fear. Is that reasonable, for a healthcare worker to be concerned about picking up something like COVID?
Oh, absolutely. I know last year, especially before the vaccine, and we felt some level of protection.
Yeah.
I know last year myself and I think most healthcare providers were pretty scared about.
Sure.
Cautious. You take all the precautions, but you never know. And especially at the beginning when we didn't know, and it was such a such a mystery about where it's coming from, how it's transmitted. There was a big fear in terms of picking it up and and obviously bringing it home, spreading it to your loved ones too.
Yeah. Let's delve a little bit deeper into your personal faith. You're Hindu, right?
Correct.
Can you explain to most of our viewers are Christian? There are many that have no faith at all.
Sure.
Can you tell us a bit about Hinduism? I know very little about it.
Sure. Hinduism is technically it's a monotheistic, meaning there's multiple what I call representations of God. But and the way I actually believe in it, I think we talked earlier, is there's more likely there's one God, and everyone has their own interpretation, and everyone has their own individual what God means to them, right?
Yeah.
And so in Hinduism, the basic tenet of the religion is do well to others, do well to God, and God will do well, and others will do well to you, and God will do well to you. Which I think is universal amongst any religion. Just do well to others, be kind, treat others with respect. And hopefully they do the same thing back.
Christianity is often something that's passed down in families. Mm-hmm. Catholics call them cradle Catholics.
Right.
So you were born into this faith.
Right.
Is that the case in India? I don't know whether you know that much about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do they study? Do you have Bible studies like we do, or tell us how the kids learn about the faith.
Same thing, through the parents, through the community.
Right.
There's obviously religious texts as well.
Yeah.
And but yeah, just the same thing, learning through the culture, learning through your parents, your relatives, and when you're kind of engrossed in it, you pick it up and you go. And
it's a very colorful religion.
Yes.
I love the outfits.
Yeah.
And there's, what's the holiday where they throw the paint powder at each other?
Holy, which is
what is that?
It's just it occurs usually in the spring, usually like April or so.
Oh, okay.
And I think it's kind of that kind of equivalent to an Easter, like a reawakening kind of celebration, and it's just that color, colors back, colors back in life kind of thing.
Oh, that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
And obviously many adherents.
Right.
For some reason, I'm popular in Nepal. Don't ask me why, but there are many Hindus there. They take a pretty strict view. I guess it used to be a Hindu kingdom back in the day.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, for like thousands of years, and now it's not. It's a communist nation, and they kind of discourage all religion whatsoever, but allow Hinduism to take root,
right,
because it's got the history going on. And I often communicate back and forth with the people I've gotten to know, and some are Hindu, some are Christian, some are just like our country, where they're not exactly sure.
Right.
Anyway, so it's a pretty fascinating thing, but it's one of the major religions of the world.
Oh yeah, major. I mean, probably at least, the population of India is about 1.3, 1.45 billion. So
wow.
So it's probably maybe close to maybe 2 billion followers. So it's definitely one of the largest.
Yeah, you talk about COVID. Back to that, I just can't get away from it. India was really hit hard.
Oh, big time.
Is that because of the proximity of people?
I think it's part of the population, part of the the culture, the education also, and it's tough. It's tough to socially distance.
Yeah. Was there resistance to getting a vaccine there?
I think similar to here. I mean, there were the ones that were the first in line to get protected, and some were fearful of it or hesitant. And
what would you do differently? This is kind of a loaded question, I guess, but what would you do differently in terms of presenting the vaccine publicly than it was? There seemed to be some communication failures.
Yeah, I think part of it is also addressing the fears straight on, instead of just saying, "Hey, this is great," which it is good, and like we said, the data proves it out. But saying, "Hey, I understand the fears," and addressing the side effect, the feared side effects or the feared myths, so to speak, addressing them straight on and say, this is actually not true, and here's the transparency of the numbers, and here's why it's so good, and versus kind of, I don't know if forcing or mandating is the right word, but versus, hey, just take it, versus we understand that this is the plus, this is the minus, but make your own choice, but we're here to help you make an educated choice.
Yeah, and having some respect for the patients, which that's one of the reasons I like you so much, is you obviously have respect for me and you explain everything,
right.
And that's what I think people want.
Right. Just, people don't like to do things blindly. In medicine, if you're from the patient standpoint, if someone says, "Hey, take this pill," and you don't tell them why, you don't tell them what issue they may have with it, they're gonna question you. Yeah. When it comes to the vaccine, I tell all my patients that obviously I got vaccinated, I got protected. Yeah. The day after my vaccine, I had chills and I had some body aches, and so I warn them, "Hey, if this may happen." Just so they don't think, it's all...
Something bad happened.
Yeah, they don't think something bad happened, or, "Hey, you lied to me, you said nothing would be, wouldn't be a problem. We feel perfectly fine," and, just be honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think part of it is education of the public. I think it's actually better than it was when, particularly in medicine, than it was when I was a kid, because I grew up in the Sabin and Salk vaccine era, and we all just lined up blindly.
Right.
Dr. Salk said this is a good thing, so we went down to the elementary school and got the cube of sugar, or whatever. And people aren't really like that anymore, and there's also a trust issue.
Right.
which is a deeper issue, a
Right.
divide in our nation.
Right.
And I think we need to do everything we can to try to heal that.
Right.
In medicine, I think, generally speaking, on a one-on-one basis, patients have good relationships with people like you. They're specialists or they're general practitioners.
Right.
But sometimes they don't.
Right.
You guys get busy. You kind of brush by. You got to get to the next one.
Right.
That's an issue too, I think.
Yeah, I think part of it, so from our part, is taking the extra 30 seconds to explain and ask hey, do you have any questions, or
Right.
what are your concerns? And it doesn't take long. It's just a matter of doing it.
Yeah.
And I think the public, like I said, they have a good relationship with their provider in person.
Right.
But then when it's on TV or it's online, it becomes a little.
Yeah.
It's harder.
it's harder
They
to
become a
do.
caricature or a cartoon versus an actual person.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, my first distance medical appointment was awkward.
Right.
Was weird.
Right. It's not the same.
Yeah,
It's not the
really
same.
not the same. Doctor, we need to take a brief break. We're going to be back with the good doctor for one more segment. We hope you watched the first two. They were fascinating. We're going to talk about some specific health issues and rely on his extensive knowledge. We'll be back right after this.
What is the Bible? What does it say? Why do people care about it? And what does it have to do with you? Christians claim the Bible was authored by God through human hands to share His story and help us understand who He is. It's a diverse collection of literature, including historical accounts, poetry, stories, and wisdom. It contains mind-blowing adventures like men being thrown into a fire-filled furnace. Yet they weren't burned. It speaks of an old man who was lowered into a lion's den, only to be supernaturally protected and not eaten. It also tells the story of a little girl who had died, yet miraculously came back to life. The Bible is one book that contains 66 smaller books. It was written over a period of 1,500 years and authored by over 40 different people that range from shepherds to doctors, scholars, farmers, and kings. Completed 2,000 years ago, historians say it's one of the most reliable books on the planet. Over 10,000 manuscripts have survived the centuries. Compare that to only 235 known manuscripts of Shakespeare's First Folio. There have been over 5 billion copies printed worldwide, making it the most reproduced book in the world. The Bible is divided into two sections, the Old Testament and the New Testament. The Old Testament is well known for its early history of the world and insight into life, giving wisdom such as don't murder and love one another. Other sections are a bit racy, such as your breasts are like two fawns, twins of a gazelle. The first 4 books in the New Testament tell the story of Jesus through the perspectives of 4 of his closest friends. The rest of the New Testament is stories and letters revealing what Jesus' closest followers did after his time on earth. God used average people to heal all kinds of diseases and drive out demons. Many of Jesus' followers were killed because they dared to preach his message. Jesus claimed to be the human manifestation of God's unfailing love for humanity and the secret for true inner peace. He gave hope to the hopeless, love to the unloved, and then gave his life to bring never-ending life to everyone who would believe in him. That's where you come in. Beware, reading this book will change you. As you read it, its message of hope will come alive in you. That's what it's designed to do. Why not give it a shot and see for yourself what it says? It just might surprise you.
Dr. Amish Prasad is with us. He's a doctor of osteopathy. Did I say it right?
Correct.
All right. His practice is called Prime Cardiology, and you can reach him through his website, which is prime-cardiology.com. How many partners do you have, by the way?
We have 7 people in our practice.
7
right now.
in your practice,
Correct.
okay. And you have different locations.
Different locations around Vegas and different specialties within cardiology
Yeah.
as well.
What does an ET do? I was talking about about my heart and, you know, all of that. And a buddy of mine had gone through the same thing with some tachycardia, you know, weird beats. What does an ET do?
So it's EP.
EP, okay.
So electrophysiologist.
Okay.
And so they're electrical specialists of the heart. So they deal with rhythm issues.
Okay.
Like you said, tachycardia, bradycardia, so fast or slow heartbeats, irregular heartbeats.
Okay.
I call them the pacemaker doctors. You know, they do they deal with pacemaker defibrillators, anything to do with rhythm issues.
Oh, okay. So there's now a defibrillator in the heart or in that pacemaker. So if the heart stops, it senses it and shocks it?
Correct. If the heart stops or does any dangerous heart rhythms that will eventually lead to the heart stopping, it shocks the heart back to life.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Right.
Yeah. When you think about it, how many beats a day does your heart do? Do you know?
Well, if you do the math, 50 to 70 a minute. So do the math accordingly.
Wow, that's a bunch.
Nonstop. Hopefully, nonstop.
That's why they say like the vice president is one heartbeat away from the presidency.
Correct. Oh yeah,
because that's all it takes.
Absolutely.
So what you do is extremely important. Let's talk about some other issues. You mentioned diet, and we talked to some extent about the fad diets and all of that. Is there any substance to some of the diets that are popular today, like only eat meat, you know, and that sort of thing, the caveman diet and all of that? I'm not sure even how that came about, but that can't be healthy, is it?
No. You know, when we look at cardiovascular health and we look at what causes heart attacks and strokes, it's usually from high cholesterol and cholesterol buildup and plaque buildup in the arteries. Yeah. And cholesterol comes from meat, comes from animals. And so that's so in general for the heart world, cardiovascular, we like to preach, you know, well-balanced diet, more fresh fruits, more fresh vegetables, meat occasionally, but plant-based. The only fad diet, so to speak, that has shown any sort of benefit long-term is the Mediterranean diet, which is not a fad diet. It's just eating fresh fruits, vegetables, more fish than red meat. Even then, limiting the amount of fish that you eat, which is just a well-balanced diet. There's nothing special about it. And the nice thing is it's sustainable over time. Most of these fad diets, people will do them for 2-4 weeks, maybe a few months, and after a while, you can't sustain it, and they go back to eating, you know, not so healthy. And so you're just eating healthy and changing more so not your diet but your lifestyle, and getting it into your head that this isn't a restricted diet that I'm eating. Eating healthy is actually how we're supposed to eat anyway. So just going back to that, you know, we're not maybe meant to eat pizza and burgers and fries every single day. You know, and we're meant to eat fresh fruits and vegetables.
One of the things I was taught was if in the Middle Ages, maybe people's general health, cardiovascular health was better, even in the pioneer days, because they couldn't afford meat.
Right, exactly.
You know, I mean, nobody except royalty ate meat at every meal.
Correct.
And maybe that's why they got gout.
Correct. And you mentioned the caveman diet, and if you look to cavemen, there's no way they can afford to hunt and eat every single day. So that was a rare treat. So cavemen were probably mostly eating fresh fruits, vegetables, nuts, berries, that kind of thing.
Wow, that makes all the sense in the world, doesn't it? Tell me about exercise. And you mentioned cardiovascular, so get moving and get up and get around. Is there a preferred? Is swimming better than running because of the damage to your knees and things like that?
You know, I tell people, do what you enjoy, do what you like. If you enjoy swimming, that actually, especially in elderly patients, or if you have any sort of knee or joint issues, swimming is much better. Me personally, I like to run, so I like that. Some people can't because of the knees. They can't run. It's not as easy to swim. We're in the desert, and so they walk, go outside. And the nice thing about Las Vegas is our weather permits that, and go outside and walk for 30 minutes a day, just nonstop moving. Not these. Hey, I have all these steps, but I walked from here to the counter and back, and all this stuff, and I've accumulated steps. It's nonstop working your heart for at least 30 minutes a day. Not that complicated, not that hard, not extensive, fancy workouts. Just go outside in your neighborhood, or find a gym on a treadmill, or find an indoor track, and just walk 30 minutes a day. A
lot of people have, you mentioned the counting steps. A lot of people have these Fitbits or the Apple Watches. And they keep track of your sleep and your heart rate and your I guess some of them even have EKGs on them, and it's really pretty remarkable. Do you recommend that, or do you think people will get too obsessed with the details and maybe, worry themselves?
No, I think it's good to have because it keeps track of they do really help keep track of your fitness. It gives you benchmarks. You mentioned people getting obsessed with it. It's actually an interesting problem in cardiology and in medicine world now because everyone has fancy blood pressure monitors or watches that upload to an app. And now where we in medicine, we have almost too much information. And it's like, what do we do with blood pressures every 30 minutes that people are giving us, or, like everyone's heart rate nonstop and they're transmitting it to us and kind of dealing with all that influx of information.
Talk about overload.
Yeah.
And I think you'd get scared because, when I was wearing the watch, I just quit wearing it. Mm-hmm. When I was wearing that watch, there'd be times when my heart rate was in the 50s and times when it was 110, and you go like, why did it do that?
Right.
And that's kind of crazy to worry about.
Yeah, and we're learning that same thing. Even traditionally in the medical field, we didn't have 24/7 monitoring of people's heart rates and stuff for all this period of time. Now we're learning, okay, people's heart rates do go from 50 to 80 to 90. Is this normal, not normal? We're learning as we go with the technology as well.
Yeah. Why does it slow down?
It depends. A lot of it's based off activity.
Oh, okay.
And it's just, are you sleeping? Your heart rate should go down when you're sleeping. Are you not doing much? And it should go up when you're more active.
Yeah. Well, that makes all the sense in the world, I think. I want to talk about drug interactions for a minute.
Sure.
There's a lot to keep track of. And when you get to be an old guy like me, you're taking 10 or 12 pills a day. And then you see something that's, some kind of a health store pill. And you go, maybe I'll get more energy when I do this. Should you be doing that without talking to your doctor?
I would.
Will they interact?
I would talk first. A lot of these nutritional pills, supplements, most of them are not FDA released or regulated. Right. So they're just kind of in principle, okay, we took some herb and ground it up and put it in a pill.
Right.
So especially when you are taking multiple pills, it's always a good idea to check and say, hey, is there any possible interaction? What's the issue?
There again, are people overeducated when it comes to looking online? Mm-hmm. Like if they don't see it, well, it might be because there haven't been any tests.
Right.
But if they don't see it, are they going to endanger their lives sometimes by taking these herbal things?
Yeah, sometimes it's overeducation. It's kind of a mix of over and under education,
Yeah.
And, the range of knowledge is a little bit limited. So you read online and they think, okay, these are supplements, so how bad could they be? But every once in a while, especially with medications, and we see it a lot. Hey, how come I'm giving you blood pressure medicine and it's not doing what it should? And hey, what else are you taking, or what else are you doing? So it's good to know.
Yeah, and if you have any bad side effects that turn up all of a sudden, stop doing that and talk to your doctor. Pharmacists have a great role in medicine.
Absolutely.
And you work with them in partnership, don't you? Tell me how pharmacology plays into osteopathy, and is it any different?
Big time. I mean, it's a big. I call my pharmacist friends all the time and say, hey, I'm on these certain medications. After a point, like you said, with interactions, I'm on all these medications now. Is there an issue I need to watch out for?
Yeah.
Or someone's kidney has issues, someone's liver has issues. Is it okay to use this medication? Do I need to change the dosage of it? And this is what they do. They do the pharmacological stuff. So we lean on them a lot. Like they do this more. It's kind of like what we said about trusting our specialists.
Yeah,
we trust them. Okay, if you know more about this, so let me lean on you in terms of which medications, what the dosage is, frequency, what do I need to change, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I've had pharmacists save a potential problem with me. Mm-hmm. They'll say, I'll see two doctors, one for my heart and one for my lungs, and then one will prescribe something and I'll forget to put it on my list at that doctor's office, and then the pharmacist will call me aside before he gives it to me, and he says, you realize both of these things do the same and you're going to have too much.
Yeah. Well, a good tip I give my patients is when you go see your physician is bring in all the pills that you take physically. So
really?
it's more visual, and plus we can say, okay, stop taking this or take this instead. Or if it's a lot, if you're taking 10 or 12 and you don't want to bring 10 bottles in everywhere you go, just have an accurate list of, this is what I'm taking and this is how much, is what it says on the bottle. And especially with technology now, I've had patients come in with pictures of all their medications, so at least you know.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, so at least you know what you're taking versus I don't know what I'm taking, or I'm taking some red pill at home, which doesn't help. And so the most helpful when people bring in their medications with them in a plastic bag. This is what I'm taking. And sometimes you pick up, like you said, hey, you're taking 2 of the same class of medications, or stuff that cancel each other out, or
alcohol. We didn't talk about the interaction of alcohol with drugs. It's like an epidemic, isn't it? And people overdosing because they're drinking and taking sedatives or whatever it is.
Correct.
What do you tell people about consuming alcohol when they come in to talk to you?
Like I said, everything in moderation. The less, the better, obviously. No more than 1 drink a night, or maybe like 3 or 4 drinks a week. Glass of, and at that meaning like a glass of wine with dinner kind of thing. I don't tell people to go do that, but if they're doing it, cut down, obviously. And when your medication list starts growing, your list of interactions starts going up. And alcohol is processed by the liver. And if your liver's affected and you're taking a medication that affects your liver, goes through the liver, you can be asking for trouble. So it's always good to bring it up, not assume that, okay, I'm just drinking 1 glass of wine a day, that should be okay. If you're on certain medications, but it never hurts to ask, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like we talk about being open with your provider, it never hurts to ask and just bring it up. If it's not an issue, it's not an issue, but at least you ask and and you go home with that peace of mind versus, just kind of ignoring it.
Marijuana is legal now in this state. What do you tell them when they come in and say, can I smoke some dope?
Well, in terms of smoking, I always tell people whatever it is in terms of inhaling, fumes and
into your lungs.
Into your lungs is not good. It's good. It's irritation. And in terms of the other stuff, I think we're still learning in the medical field. I know there are benefits and cardiovascular and neurological benefits. But I think we're still learning.
Not the cure-all for...
Not the cure-all, and I think we're still learning how much is good or not good. Kind of learning what should we recommend or not. So in the medical field, I think we still err on the side of maybe the same thing, the less the better. And let us do the research, and then we can present to you, hey, this actually maybe is good or not good,
Yeah, and everything is relative. Maybe if they're really drinking way too much, maybe marijuana would be better. I don't know.
Right.
Nobody really knows.
No one knows. And it all ties back to that. Let's rely on the experts. Let the research pan out and then make an educated recommendation.
That's wonderful.
Versus off the cuff.
It's hard to believe, but an hour has raced by.
Wow, it's been great.
And I want to thank you very much for coming in and being direct and frank and honest. And I'm sure we're going to get some calls and questions. Please contact me and I can pass them along to you.
Absolutely.
We'll have the good doctor on again. You can reach me through my website, which is vegassaints.org, or you can call me on my ministry phone here, and that's 702-480-3989. And we love hearing from you anyway. So Dr. Amish Prasad, DO, prime-cardiology.com if you want to get in touch with him. And you'd welcome that.
All right, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
God bless you.
You too.
That guy is a wonderful guy, isn't he? We'll have him come on again. As I try to remember to say each and every episode of Las Vegas Tonight before I sign off, when it comes to our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, please walk with him. God bless you.
Sing their glory in a sweet lullaby as the trees reach up to touch the sun. The wind shapes the clouds that are rolling by as the world gives way to a life begun. The seasons change and life is what it brings, showing beauty that surrounds us all and gives us a reason
If sin begins with self-obsession, I've been the worst. Believed the curse, searched for worth, and found nothing in heaven, on earth, or in between. No man-made schemes or pure righteous plea could free me from myself. But I remember the day when I came colliding with the cross. I saw Jesus stumble to Golgotha on that pathway filled with pain, slain on blood-stained tree. The power of his death has invited me into my own. Resurrection has overthrown. The grave's claims, "It is finished," is the good news in every age echoing on the airways. Jesus Christ was crucified, that the worst of us might taste life.
Come on and shine, shine, shine. Las Vegas, shine your light on me.
You've been watching Las Vegas Tonight with your host, Dale Davidson. We hope you've enjoyed this edition of our show. We so appreciate your loyalty to our program. To keep Las Vegas Tonight on the air, please go to our website, vegassaints.org, and click the Donate button. To send a check or money order, please make it out to Dale Wynn Davidson Ministries and mail it to 9030 West Sahara Avenue, Suite 255, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89117. To suggest a guest to appear on the show or any other suggestions or questions, write to Dale at dalewdavidson@yahoo.com or call him at 702-480-3989.
Shine, Las Vegas, shine.